Hello, friends. Welcome to Tales from the Nebula. If you enjoy the original stories told here, like and subscribe. Grace's first day in New York. Grace Reynolds had never seen so many buildings scrape the sky. Flying in from Denver that morning, she'd spent the last 20 minutes glued to the oval window, chin propped in her palm, staring at Manhattan as it rose out of the haze. It looked unreal, like a cardboard cutout floating in a glimmering river. She'd graduated from Colorado State University just 3 weeks ago with a marketing degree and a thin, hopeful folder of job interviews. Now she was here to chase the dream. The terminal at LaGuardia was chaos, a symphony of luggage wheels, boarding calls, and coffee orders shouted over the hum. She tugged her carry-on through the crowd, inhaling the strange new scent of jet fuel and rain-warmed asphalt. When she reached the curb, she hesitated at the long line of people hunched over phones, waiting for Ubers and lifts. That wasn't how she'd pictured her first New York ride. She wanted the movie version. A yellow cab pulled up, brakes squealing. She stepped forward, heart thumping with the thrill of doing something quintessentially New York. The driver was a broad-shouldered man with deep smile lines, a hint of grey in his beard, and eyes that seemed older than the rest of him. His laminated name tag read, Teddy. "Where to, miss?" he asked, in an accent thick with melody. "Midtown, please," Grace said, sliding into the back. "Oh, and I've never been here before. If it's not too much trouble, could we take the scenic route?" Teddy grinned in the mirror. Scenic route in New York means more traffic, more horns, and maybe one rat the size of a dog. "You sure?" "I'm sure." Teddy chuckled. "You remind me of my oldest daughter, headstrong and fearless." Their eyes briefly met in the mirror, and they smirked at each other. They rolled into the city, merging into a current of honking cars and rushing pedestrians. Grace pressed her forehead to the glass, watching blocks of brick, steel, and glass stream past, corner bodegas with neon beer signs, steam gushing from manhole covers, street vendors flipping meat over sizzling grills. "You like the city so far?" Teddy asked, catching her smile. "I love it," Grace said. "It feels alive, in a way I've never felt before." Teddy nodded. "When I came here from Nigeria 20 years ago, I thought the same thing. I planned to stay 2 years, save some money and return home. But," he gestured toward the skyline, "this place has claws. It holds you." Grace leaned forward. "Do you ever regret staying?" "Not for a single day. It's not easy. The city will chew you up sometimes. But if you survive here," he tapped the steering wheel for emphasis, "you can survive anywhere." The first tremor was so subtle, she almost missed it. It began as a low vibration through the cab's frame, like a subway train passing underground. Grace thought nothing of it until the streetlights overhead began to sway. Storefront windows rattled in their frames. "Was that?" she began. A second jolt hit. Harder this time. Car alarms erupted. A cyclist swerved into a parked van, swearing. Somewhere nearby, glass shattered. "Is this an earthquake?" Grace asked, gripping the door handle. Teddy's knuckles went pale. "We don't get earthquakes here. Not like this." The asphalt ahead cracked with a sharp pop and split down the middle. People screamed as the sidewalk pitched downward, opening into a jagged gap. A delivery truck ahead of them lurched sideways, one wheel sinking. "Teddy! Hold on!" He slammed the accelerator. The cab shot forward, tires squealing. They weaved between panicked pedestrians and skidding cars. Behind them, a terrible sound rose, like a mountain groaning. Grace twisted in her seat just in time to see an entire block along the waterfront collapse. Buildings pitched forward in slow, nightmarish motion before shattering into the East River. Water surged upward in a violent plume, devouring piers, lampposts, and screaming figures. "The land, it's falling away," Grace gasped. "It's not stopping," Teddy said, voice tight. "We go north. Bridges if they still stand." The cab roared uptown. Around them, the city was coming undone. Glass rained from tilting towers. Manhole covers burst upward. Geysers of steam and water exploding into the air. Sirens blared from all directions, half drowned by the grinding roar of collapsing stone. An aftershock struck. The road buckled, tossing the cab sideways. Grace's head slammed into the window. She bit back a cry. Teddy fought the wheel, the tendons in his forearms like cables. To their right, the Chrysler building leaned, groaning. With a final metallic wail, its spire tore free, spinning through the air before vanishing into the roiling water where several streets had already disappeared. Traffic was gridlocked ahead. Teddy swerved hard down a side street, narrowly missing a crumpled bus. They passed people sprinting with armloads of children, a woman pushing her elderly father in a wheelchair, a man clutching a dog to his chest as bricks rained down. "Uptown's not enough," Teddy muttered, more to himself than her. "We have to get off the island." Another fissure split the road ahead, forcing him into a wild detour through an alley. Trash cans and shattered glass blurred past. The air smelled of dust, diesel, and the briny tang of the rising tide. Somewhere above, a skyscraper's facade peeled away like paper, crashing into the street with the sound of thunder. The shockwave rattled their bones. "Teddy, what's happening to the city?" Grace's voice broke. He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the vanishing horizon in the rearview mirror, where the southern half of Manhattan was sinking into the ocean. And it was getting closer. The cab rattled over cracked asphalt, the steering wheel jerking in Teddy's hands. Every few blocks they'd pass another fissure, yawning open in the street, spewing bursts of steam or swallowing whole cars. Grace clung to the seatbelt strap, her breathing ragged. The bridges? How far? If the George Washington is still standing, maybe 10 minutes. His voice was low, measured, like if he kept it calm enough, maybe the world would follow suit. The sky had turned a strange, bruised grey. Dust and smoke rose in thick clouds over the southern skyline, making the sun a dim smear. From somewhere far below, a deep rumble rolled through the earth, constant now, like the growl of something alive. As they swerved around an overturned delivery truck, Grace spotted movement up ahead. A girl, no older than 10, standing frozen in the middle of the street. Her red coat blazed against the grey chaos, her small hands clutched around a stuffed rabbit. Teddy's eyes widened. "Hang on!" He stomped the brakes, skidding the cab sideways until it screeched to a halt just feet from her. Teddy was out of the car in an instant. "Come here, little one," he called, voice cutting through the noise. The girl didn't move, just stared past him, eyes wide with shock. Teddy jogged toward her, the ground trembling beneath his feet. "Teddy, hurry!" Grace shouted, craning her neck to watch him. A fresh quake struck, a violent, bone-jarring jolt. Behind them, a section of the street gave way with a deafening crack, the edge of the island peeling away into open air. Seawater surged upward, foaming around the ruins of buildings as they pitched into the abyss. Teddy reached the girl, crouched low, speaking fast in a gentle tone Grace couldn't hear over the chaos. He scooped her into his arms, shielding her with his body as the shaking grew worse. Grace's stomach lurched. The fracture in the earth was racing toward them, the line of destruction moving with terrifying speed. Blocks collapsing like rotted floorboards, the ocean swallowing everything in its path. "Run!" Grace screamed, throwing her door open. She bolted 2 steps toward them before the sound hit her. A massive, rushing roar, the voice of the sea devouring a city. She looked back just in time to see the street beneath Teddy and the girl crumble. For a heartbeat, they were suspended there against the falling skyline. Teddy's wide, determined eyes locking with hers across the distance. Then the asphalt dropped away. Teddy and the girl vanished into the churning water. "Teddy, no!" Grace's voice broke as she stumbled forward, but the ground at her feet split with a sharp, cracking sound. She reeled back, heart hammering, the widening chasm forcing her toward the cab. Her hands shook as she scrambled inside, slamming the door, flooring the gas. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to outrun the collapse. Teddy's absence, a raw wound in her chest. Grace tore up the street, the yellow cab shuddering over fractured pavement. The city was dissolving around her, skyscrapers snapping like wet matchsticks, street signs spinning away into the spray. The roar of the Atlantic was no longer distant. It was right behind her, a wall of sound that seemed to press on her back. Her mind kept replaying Teddy's last look, steady, unflinching, even as the world fell away beneath him. She'd known him for less than an hour, and yet the space he left inside her felt vast and hollow. The George Washington Bridge loomed ahead, its steel towers stabbing into the dusty sky. Relief surged through her, until she saw the chaos clogging its entrance. Cars were jammed in every lane, horns blaring, people abandoning vehicles to run on foot. She swerved onto the sidewalk, bumping over shattered curbs, dodging toppled mailboxes. The cab's suspension screamed in protest, but she didn't slow. The tremors were constant now, each one threatening to split the road entirely. Grace weaved through the bottleneck, forcing the cab into a narrow gap between a panel truck and a crushed SUV. A man pounded on her window, shouting for help, but she couldn't stop. Not now. As she cleared the bridge's base, a deafening crash echoed behind her. She risked a glance in the rearview mirror and saw the last blocks of Manhattan giving way, skyscrapers sliding into the sea like great ships going down in slow motion. The wave followed, a churning, grey-green wall swallowing everything in its path. She pressed the accelerator to the floor. The bridge shuddered under the quake, cables thrumming like plucked strings. Chunks of asphalt sheared off the deck, plunging into the Hudson below. Halfway across, the shaking intensified. Steel groaned overhead. A fissure tore through the pavement ahead of her, wide enough to see the water rushing far below. Grace swerved hard, clipping the side rail, sparks spitting into the air. "Come on, come on!" she whispered through gritted teeth, the skyline ahead growing larger. Then, suddenly, she was across. The cab burst onto the New Jersey side of the river. Grace slammed it to a stop in the middle of an open lot, chest heaving. She stumbled out, dropping to her knees on the cracked pavement. Behind her, the wave smashed into the bridge's Manhattan anchorage. The far half of the span folded, vanishing into the boiling water, the towers snapping in a spray of foam and twisted metal. Grace sat there, dust in her hair, the wind off the water carrying the faint sound of sirens. She stared at the empty space where Manhattan had been, the reality of it settling over her like lead. Her fingers found the edge of the passenger seat through the open cab door. Something soft caught there. She pulled it free. It was the stuffed rabbit, wet, tattered. Grace closed her eyes, clutching it to her chest. She didn't know if Teddy and the girl had been taken instantly, or if, somewhere out there, beyond the smoke and ruin, they had found something to hold on to. But she knew one thing. The city hadn't been wrong. It was alive. And today it had roared.